All right. So, I wanted to make a video on all the different things that I've noticed playing D&D has helped me in my life. And I got stuck kind of how am I supposed to format something like that? Cuz I could say, "Oh, it benefited here and here and here and here," and then the obvious question goes to, "Well, how did it benefit?" And that's not the easiest thing to pinpoint because it's D&D is such a large multifaceted game that it's like asking, well, where in your life do you know helped you improve? And you can point to a few different things where it's like, yeah, those definitely helped me improve. But then you can look at the nebulous portions of your life and it's like, did I really improve much when I was sitting in the lunchroom with my friends joking about stuff, like in like ninth grade? And you could say yeah, or you could go no, and it's like, well, how are you supposed to know if it did or not? Would you really be the same person you are right now if you didn't do it? And thus, is that the thing that helped you improve, and is improvement not just these big moments, but all of the little moments in between those big moments as well? Or is it the little moments that actually build up to the big moments? It gets really messy. So it's hard to actually pinpoint exactly how those have benefited my life. But there's a few areas that I can point to that kind of generally do the thing. So I just took those and I wrote them down onto a book, and I'm just gonna try to see if I can keep this a little bit more cohesive than a few of my other pieces. I'm not really known for being cohesive, am I? Uh, it's genetics, I swear. Uh, okay, so on my list I have social skills, problem solving, group organization, and teamwork, thinking on the spot, creativity, storytelling, and probably I should put self confidence on that one too, because it definitely gives you a little bit of a self confidence boost when you get to the defeat the dragon and whatnot. Uh, let's start from the top. Social skills. You wouldn't necessarily think that a stereotypical group of like because the stereotypical idea of a D&D group is like six 30-year-olds sitting in their mom's basement rolling dice, right? So it's not like the most you don't look at it and go, "Ah, yes, those people have solid social skills." So, fair enough. One of the things about that though is I would say that I'm playing D&D fundamentally different than what they're playing, right? So the way in which we play D&D is fundamentally different. The way that I play D&D highly mimics real life in many different facets. So I made a video yesterday about how the problem that I had with D&D, biggest problem I was having with my longest campaign that I've ever done, and it was that I didn't incorporate the players into understanding that the world that I had built for them was a harsh world that didn't care about them. Now, that's important because if it's a harsh world that doesn't care about you, you instantly don't have the boost that some of these other stories have, right? So you're not like the chosen one or like all the stars aligned for this moment kind of thing. It's like if you're going to do something, it was you who did it. That's important because a lot of stuff in real life is like that too. If you end up choosing to do something, it's not because, oh, all the stars aligned and it's like, well, you got up and you did the thing. So, and sometimes you can get lucky and the stars align and whatnot, but luck doesn't matter if you're not willing to go up and take the chance to do the things, right? If you're not rolling the dice, it doesn't matter how lucky you are. Now, uh, because of this, and because I also do because I also heavily value consequences, do good action, get good consequence, do bad action, get bad consequence, do good thing in bad area tends to get bad consequence until you do enough good thing in bad area to start making it so it's no longer bad area. Um, do bad thing in bad area, good consequence, that kind of thing. So because of this, it mimics a social dynamic a lot more accurately. I'm also playing with highly intelligent players, so I have to make sure that if they're talking to a non-player character, an NPC, then the NPC has to mimic somewhat the functions of real life, right? And I've gone through, read a lot of books and all this stuff, so I'm somewhat familiar with mimicking aspects of real life so that it feels like you're playing with not just the one person across the thing, but you're in like you're engrossed in the world, right? So it helps with the suspension of disbelief. Because of this, it's helped you acquire social skills because the way in which you act socially in the game is highly similar to the way you would act socially in real life. There was a study at some point, I believe, I could totally be wrong about this. I heard it on the Game Theorist channel, but it was something like you actually do get better at dating when you play dating video games. If the dating video games aren't ridiculously outrageous in how that goes. So if they're somewhat realistic dating video games, you actually do gain dating experience in the terms of like being able to talk with people and choose the right dialogue options, XYZ. So the closer the thing that you're playing mimics life, the more benefit you get out of it. And the more that you can take the info and point where that mimicked life and where that doesn't, it also improves. So there's ways that you can do it. But because of the way that I play D&D and the way that my characters play D&D, my player characters play D&D, it increases the ability to be social. Now, as a dungeon master, it also gave me the ability of group self-reflection, right? So that's a little complex. The idea is I can self-reflect on myself and I can self-reflect on somebody else's actions of, okay, so if I was in that person's position, what would I have to think for them to do this, right? And you can take their words and their actions, you can pit them against each other, and it's complicated. Anyway, long story short, if you play enough other people, you can start to get a vibe for why other people do what they do. Anyway, that helps with social skills. I've definitely seen an improvement in sociability. I'm not necessarily a social or antisocial person in general. I would definitely be more social if there were more social activities around me, but I don't tend to go out and create social activities. So, take that as you will. Also, I'm just a random dude on the internet. So I found that as I play NPCs and characters in worlds, I tend to get better at understanding other people more, which is a really interesting concept. And the more that I understand other people, the better I get with interacting with other people on a social level. All right, so problem solving. That's the next one. This one is self-explanatory to me, but I have to go with the assumption that the people that I'm talking to don't know what D&D is. So if you've played D&D, saying D&D helps with problem solving is either you'll squint at that and be like, who the heck are you talking about? You must be terrible at problem solving if you're using D&D to get better at problem solving. Or you go, well, duh, of course it helps with problem solving. So to break it down, uh, I do a lot of extrapolation. So if I take a subject and I generalize that subject, I find that it can be that the general principles of that subject can be used in various fields outside of said subject. For example, let's take learning art skills, right? So when you're learning art skills, let's say drawing, you're going through and you have to practice the motions of different shapes, and you have to practice the motions of having confidence in how you're drawing and how you visualize drawing the shapes in front of you, right? So you have to be able to, in your head, simplify the shapes that you're looking at into simple shapes. Then you can draw those simple shapes, and then you can slowly add detail to them. Now, if you extrapolate a little bit, you can say it's the same thing for piano, right? So learning to draw and learning piano, they're the same thing. You can either go, oh, okay, or what? And to explain, it's okay, so you have to practice different motions. Okay, so scales. All right, so I'm getting used to different scales, and I'm getting used to being able to have hand independence. All right, so I practice the motions of the piano. Then I have to practice the general shapes, being able to draw basic shapes. And I would say that that's basic chords. And you can get fancy with inverted chords and different suspensions and whatnot, or using the wrong term there. Anyway, so you get used to the shapes of the piano, which I would say are the chords, and you can have like different runs and whatnot, XYZ. And then you change how you think about the notes. So it's not like C, D, E, F, right? It's root 1, it's root 2, 3, 4, right? And then, so you change about how you think about it, and when you change about how you think about it, it allows you to utilize your shapes better. Now, if you think about stuff like that, you go, okay, wait, but that can be used for pretty much anything. And it's like, well, yeah, learning things are pretty akin to learning other things. So I find that really useful. Now, there's a chance that this is why I find D&D so useful, is because it hits a bunch of different general topics, and when it hits general topics, I can take the general information, extrapolate it, and use it across other topics. But when it comes to problem solving, you run into a lot of problems when you're playing D&D, because that's the nature of the game. It's no fun if you're playing a game that doesn't, give you problems, right? Like Super Mario Bros. Wouldn't be fun if you weren't facing if it had 0 enemies and you were just kind of walking around and could do whatever you want, right? Pac-Man would be a ridiculously boring game if there were no ghosts. At least for the majority of people. So that kind of mindset, it's like, okay, so you have a problem, which is the thing stopping you from achieving your goal. And then you have to find ways around that problem. And you face a lot more problems in a shorter period of time that you are much more willing to face in D&D than if you were to do that in your real world. So if, a cart gets turned over and crashes and a bunch of goblins are coming to ambush you, if that were real life, you would probably go, well, crap, I'm either gonna ditch this place, or way less likely is you going up to fight the goblins. Most people would probably just run. But in D&D, you go, well, crap, I gotta protect this thing. So then you go and you defend it, because if you die in the D&D world, right, then it's way less punishing than if you die in real life. So I hope that's obvious to most people listening to this. Anyway, so problem solving is the way that it helps with problem solving is because it does a lot of different problem scenarios at you in quick succession, and you go at it with the idea that you can solve the problem. And that mentality is very important for problem solving. If you go to a problem thinking that you cannot fix this problem, then you're probably never going to fix that problem. So So it helps shift the mindset of, oh, there's a problem here and we can fix it. And then it throws a bunch of those at you. And that helps with developing your skills for problem solving. Group organization and teamwork, I hope, speaks for itself. It's a group game where you're working with people and it's collaborative. I don't want to break this down more in a way that feels highly demeaning to anyone listening to it, because it just feels insulting to the audience. When you throw yourself into group scenarios where you have to work with other people and it's not obvious at first how to work with people, and then you work with them a few different times and you get used to working with them and everyone starts to get in their roles, that helps with learning how to work with people in general overall. I point back to the thing of me explaining the extrapolation idea. Also, if your dungeon master is good at what they do, like really good at what they do, they'll throw problems at you that force you out of your set roles. And they'll throw some of those. Those won't be every problem, those will be some problems. And that'll force you to work together outside of how you're used to working together. That helps improve teamwork. And then it throws a lot of needing to work together problems at you, and then you get better at it. Thinking on the spot is somewhat obvious, but a little bit less so. So usually when someone's forced to think on the spot, they think, oh, they're thrown with a somewhat stressful situation where they need to find the answer fast, or something bad happens. And you go, well, in a D&D game, the stakes are low. And in some ways you're right. And in other ways you're wrong. Because the stakes are low, sure, if you're looking at it from an outside perspective. But to the one player who's gone through, or even the party who's gone through and saved their little animal fluff ball for like 3 months, and they've constantly been protecting it for however long, and it has this adorable personality that everyone enjoys. When someone threatens that, the stakes instantly become exponentially higher than just piece of paper might not have word on it anymore. Right? So because you get emotional attachments to all of these things in the world, right? And I've seen it where people get emotional attachments to their weapons in the game, right? You're like, why would someone get an emotional attachment to a tool? And there's fun ways that you can do it. But when you take these pieces that people have built these emotional bonds to, and you basically present them with, if you guys don't run this right, this thing might not exist anymore, then the stakes become exponentially higher than you would expect. And so thinking on the spot, I tend to, and this happens both ways. It's not just for the players, it's also for the dungeon master. And I would say that in most cases, it's way higher for the dungeon master. So on the player side, if they get ambushed, if the situation is different from what they were expecting, if they suddenly have to deal with something they weren't expecting, and all of those things happen a good chunk of time, then they have to think on the spot and come up with a plan then, especially if you go through and you give them some real life time constraints. And I tend to give some real life time constraints for different things, right? So when I want it to feel higher stress, I'll actually give them some time limits. So I'll like set a timer or something. When it comes to my case, so as the dungeon master, my players do stuff that I don't expect all the freaking time. If you want someone who will figure out the best way to break the mechanics of a game, you don't ask the dungeon master. You ask the players to the dungeon master. And they will think of like 30 different things that you never expected, and you have to fix your world and set up on the spot because of it. So that definitely helps with on the spot thinking. creativity is reasonably obvious. It doesn't necessarily make me more creative, but it hones the type of creativity that I can do so that my creativity has a higher consistency, right? And I have to be able to be more consistent with its output, uh and collaborative works like that tend to be more creative than just singular works that I work on. But because it's a fantasy game that people play in their heads and little minifigures on the table and some pieces of paper, then then it becomes a high level creativity game, especially if you're playing with the idea of subverting some different thoughts that the players have just to keep it lively. It definitely forces some different creativity. Storytelling is somewhat obvious, but D&D isn't what you would say like writing a book is. It's collaborative storytelling, right? So I'm telling a story of the world and they're telling the story of their characters, and together we're telling the story of how they interact with one another. And so it's not just storytelling, it's being able to tell a story with other people. Uh, Another idea that is very similar to this is running jokes. So running jokes, inside jokes, and stuff like that, collaborative storytelling. If you go through and you tee up somebody for a joke and they hit the joke and then someone else plays off of that, that you're collaboratively storytelling for the joke, right? You're working together for it. You're doing somewhat of the same thing for D&D, just instead of a joke, it's more of a narrative, right? So it's I tee up my players, they hit the thing, I pass it back kind of stuff, right? Or they hit the thing, another player bounces off of that, and then there's chaos. Because everybody is just they it, you I love and hate my players at the same time. We have a love-hate relationship and it's great and they know it and I know it and they are the the joys of my game and the bane of my game all at the same time. Uh any any DM will probably understand. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, if I can recall what it was, give me half a second. So the last one is self confidence. Now, there's an interesting piece about self confidence in this one, which is a lot more psychology based. And you tend to find that people who act self confident tend to gain more self confidence over time. And people who don't act confident lose confidence over time. So they have less confidence in themselves over time. Playing a game like D&D, I find goes through and improves the confidence level of people because they start to learn that, oh yeah, they can face these different like literal figurative dragons. That gets a little confusing. They can face these literal imaginary dragons that they're fighting, and as they go through, you can see that their confidence actually builds in their ability to express themselves, in their ability to speak out against the group, in their ability to work with people, in their ability to find solutions to problems that other people can't see, different stuff like that. And all of these build to increase their confidence. So I've noticed that almost everybody I play D&D with either has a high level of confidence or builds a higher level of confidence from the playing of D&D, which is really interesting. And they might not carry that confidence with them all the time, but if you go through and someone's really not confident and they start playing a more confident character, you can start to see them slowly increase their confidence level in real life over time. So that's an interesting one that I've noticed. And I can't really point to the exact reason why, probably something about psychology and enacting roles, Don Quixote type things of what I was talking about the other day. If you like, when does pretending stop being pretending? kind of thing. Uh, but those were the I've gained a lot of I've noticed this through my life. I've gained a lot of benefits from D&D. It was probably one of the most beneficial single things I've dived myself into. Which is really interesting that that would be the thing, because there's a huge stigma against against Dungeons and Dragons, it seems like. Or role playing games in general. It's like, well, why would you do role playing games? It's like, well, actually, it seems to improve your life and whatnot in different manners if you do it with the right people. It's very important. Do it with the right people was very important. Because it would not have been as beneficial to me if I did it with a different group than this one. It could have been more beneficial, but the odds of that happening are very low. um, so I just wanted to, because I've noticed in my work, like my actual work stuff, like, the thing that I do to gain money and not this side shtick. I've noticed that if I self reflect on myself while solving all these different things that I'm doing at work, uh, almost everything that I'm facing, it just feels like one giant D&D game. And that's surprising to me. It's like, wait a second, hold on, that thing that I started playing in like age 11, 8, 11 kind of thing. That's actually coming back and helping me. There's How the heck did that happen? That was just supposed to be a fun little game. So, yeah.